Welcome, listener, in the shadows. We bring stories into the light. Join me as we explore the encounters no one speaks of and the things that watch from the dark. You were never supposed to see this, but since you have, you might as well wear it. From the vaults of the shadows, a new collection of unsettling apparel and artifacts pulled straight from the stories that were never meant to surface. Soft, worn-in shirts and hoodies that feel like something you dug out of a locked trunk in an abandoned ranger station. This isn't just merch, it's evidence. The tall one behind the shed. A slow-burn rural horror tale of absence, folklore, and something watching Chapter 1. Return to Hollow Bend. The last time Caleb Morvan stood on the front porch of the family farmhouse, his father had slammed the screen door behind him without a word. That was 3 years ago. A few passive-aggressive Christmas cards, a voicemail every 6 months, enough to sustain the illusion of a relationship. And then nothing, until now. A call from the sheriff's office. Your father hasn't been seen in 10 days. Properties untouched. Mail piling up. You're still his next of kin. Caleb didn't ask questions. He packed 2 bags and drove 8 hours back to Hollow Bend, West Virginia, back to the house that raised him in silence and superstition. The town was smaller than he remembered. The gas station now sold beer behind bulletproof glass, and the diner was half-boarded, but the faces were the same. Everyone nodded at him too long, like they were trying to place him in the frame of someone else. The farmhouse was untouched, windows dusty but intact, mailbox full, truck still parked in the grass behind the barn. Caleb walked the perimeter like a man returning to a dream, everything familiar, but with edges wrong. The porch light flickered even in daylight. The shed out back stood with the door slightly open, warped as though something too large had gone through. The neighbors hadn't seen anything. Your daddy kept to himself, the old woman next door told him through a cracked screen. Used to hear him talking late though, not on the phone, just talking. Chapter 2. The shed of the shed hadn't changed, not from the outside. Still leaned slightly to the right. Still wore its coat of dark green peeling paint like sunburned skin. The same crooked weathervane twitched at the top like a dead bird twitching in a storm. Yet standing before it, Caleb felt his breath slow, like his body was bracing for something his mind hadn't yet remembered. He pulled open the door and the hinges screamed in protest. Inside, the air was thick. Dust motes swirled in a single shaft of daylight slicing through the warped boards. The place smelled like rust and soil, overripe wood and something. Sour, deeper than mold. Organic. Wrong. His boots clapped against the wooden floorboards as he stepped in. The arrangement was just as his father had always kept it. Tools hung neatly by type. Nails sorted in old Folgers cans. Ropes coiled and hanging like limp nooses. But something didn't add up. Caleb could feel it before he could name it. The floor had changed. He crouched near the far left corner. Dirt was exposed where old planks had been ripped out. A shallow pit, like something had burrowed from beneath or been dug out in haste. He brushed his hand along the floor. The dirt was damp. Something sharp caught his fingers. Glass. No, a tooth. Long, yellowed, slightly curved like a canine butt. Wrong, almost human. Caleb dropped it. He turned, suddenly aware of how silent the shed was. No birdsong, no breeze. It felt like he'd walked into the center of a held breath. Every instinct screamed that he shouldn't be here. And not in a rational, this is dangerous way, but in the way a deer bolts without knowing why. His eyes landed on something nailed to the back wall, barely visible behind a hanging tarp. He pulled it aside. A crude effigy. Thin twigs lashed together with twine to form a tall, gangly shape. The arms were too long. The legs bent the wrong way. A deer skull was affixed at the top with wires twisted through the eye sockets. It was dressed in something that might have once been a shirt, now blackened and stiff, like it had soaked in something foul. He backed out of the shed and slammed the door. That night, he didn't sleep. The house made sounds he didn't remember, boards creaking overhead as if someone paced the hallway slowly, thoughtfully, plumbing groaning in pulses. He assumed it was just age, but the rhythm of it gnawed at his nerves. At 2:14 a.m., a paper note slid beneath his bedroom door. No footsteps, no noise before or after, just that soft slip like a whisper. Caleb stared at it from bed for 10 minutes before getting up. The paper was yellowed and crinkled, no handwriting on the outside. Inside, a short message written in uneven strokes. Don't feed it. It watches from the left. He didn't go back to sleep. Chapter 3. Local law. The Hollow Bend Public Library sat like a patient corpse in the center of town, unchanged, unloved, and quietly waiting. Dust muted the spines of every book. Fluorescent lights flickered above the front desk, which was manned by a woman who looked like she'd worked there since the Nixon era. Caleb approached her with the note folded in his pocket, a polite lie on his lips. Hi, I'm looking into some local stories, folklore stuff, old hauntings. My father used to tell me stories about the tall one. Ring any bells? The woman's eyes twitched slightly at the name. I remember your father, James Morvan, used to come in here with that same look on his face. What look? She just pointed him to the archive room. The archives were no more than 2 old steel file cabinets, a dusty computer, and a microfiche reader that groaned when turned on. Caleb flipped through the drawer labeled Folklore/Unsolved. The first mention of the tall one was from 1964, a school teacher who reported seeing a thing beyond the fields behind the gymnasium, described as tall, unnaturally thin, and not fully visible, like looking at something through oily glass. The teacher left town 3 weeks later. No forwarding address. Another account from 1978. A girl went missing from the Morley farm. Her younger brother told police the man behind the shed took her. No signs of struggle. Just a dropped teddy bear and drag marks through the soy field that stopped 20 feet from the woods. In 1985, a local reverend, John Creeley, claimed he'd been visited in dreams by a tall figure with antlers that spoke in backwards words. He later burned his own church down. The article stopped after that, officially at least. But it was one clipping that froze Caleb's breath. Local teen claims repeated visitation from tall man behind family barn. The article was dated 1990. The teen interviewed was James Morvan, 17 years old. My dad, Caleb whispered. In the article, James describes waking up to see a tall shape standing between the shed and the tree line, bending toward the house but never walking. He claimed it mimicked the sound of his dead dog barking, claimed it left scratches on the windows, scratches too high for a man. James said he tried to draw it, but the face never came out right. My hands go wrong when I try, he told the reporter. It doesn't want to be drawn. At the bottom of the page, a final quote. It doesn't walk like a person. It unfolds. Caleb sat back. His hands were shaking. He checked his phone. 3:33 p.m. Outside the window of the library, just beyond the street, just past the open field behind the post office. He thought he saw something tall move into the shadow of a tree. But when he looked again, nothing was there. Chapter 4. The recording. Caleb left the library with a sick twist in his gut. The kind that settles in when you found something you didn't realize you were looking for. He drove back to the farmhouse with the windows down, the stale country air sliding in like the breath of something patient and waiting. The house felt colder when he stepped inside. Not physically, no change in the thermostat, no draft, but something about the air had changed. Like walking into a room where someone had just left or was still watching, hidden. He didn't go upstairs, not yet. Instead, he checked the basement. His dad had always kept things that he didn't want on display, not secrets per se, just the stuff that collects in a life too long spent on one patch of land. The basement was exactly as Caleb remembered. Cement floor, wooden shelves lined with jars of rusted bolts, oil cans, and boxes of old Polaroids and VHS tapes. Dust settled over everything like it had died in its sleep. He found it in an old fishing tackle box tucked under the stairs. A cassette tape. No label, no case. Just a strip of masking tape stuck to one side with the words, "For Caleb," scrawled in faded Sharpie. He stared at it for a full minute before fishing the old portable player out from the same box. It still had batteries. He clicked it shut and pressed play. Tape hiss. Caleb, if you're hearing this, I'm gone. And if I'm gone, that thing came back. I'm sorry, son. I'm so goddamn sorry. His father's voice was older than Caleb remembered. Tired, cracked. This place, the land, the shed, it's not just haunted, it's watched. That thing, it don't live here. Not exactly. It visits. It leans in. Feeds. A pause. A rustle of fabric. A breath. It started with the dog. You remember Jasper? You were 6. We told you he ran off. That was a lie. We found what was left of him under the shed, curled up like something had tried to wear him. That's the first time I saw it. Another pause. It's tall, son, not just in size, presence. You'll know what I mean when you see it, and you will see it. Caleb felt the bile rising. His fingers shook. Don't trust your eyes. It wears things. Skins, voices, memories. But it can't get them right. You'll hear me in the house. You might even see your old dog. But you'll know. Deep down you'll know. It doesn't blink, doesn't breathe. It mimics to get close. Another sound, wood creaking. The tape hissed, grew louder, like the microphone was being held up to something. Then a clicking, subtle, wet, like someone tapping teeth together slowly, just off rhythm. That's how it speaks, the clicking. If you hear that outside the house, don't answer, don't open the door, no matter what voice it uses. Silence, then a final line. The shed's not the beginning. It's the mouth, and it's been open too long. Tape ends. Caleb sat on the basement floor for a long time, the cassette player humming with dead air in his hands. His father's voice had returned like a ghost, but with it came something else. A certainty. He wasn't alone in the house, and he hadn't been for some time. Chapter 5. Sounds from the field. Caleb didn't go back upstairs until morning. He slept, if you could call it that, on the worn couch in the living room with the old shotgun his dad kept over the fireplace laid across his lap. He didn't believe in ghosts, not really, but he believed in patterns. And something about this farm, his father's last days, and the tape all pointed to the same rotten conclusion. Something had returned, and it hadn't come alone. The morning light was pale and grey, filtered through a cloud-covered sky that had hung unmoving for days. Caleb stepped outside, the shotgun cradled in one arm, and walked the property line. Nothing had changed, and yet everything had. The trees near the shed were too still, the air around it too thick. The snow hadn't returned, but the soil had gone dark, heavy with recent moisture that shouldn't have been there. That afternoon, he sat in the kitchen drinking reheated coffee and flipping through one of his dad's old ledgers. Lists of crop rotations, repair dates, and random phrases scratched in the margins like reminders. Do not dig past the clay. It will smell like copper when it's close. No mirrors after sundown. Half of it read like superstition, the other half like warnings given too late. That night, the house groaned under its own weight, restless as an animal with something crawling beneath its skin. Caleb laid down in the upstairs bedroom, his dad's old room, and kept the shotgun beside the bed, pointed at the door. He hadn't meant to sleep, but exhaustion won out. What woke him wasn't a sound, not exactly. It was lack of sound, a sudden hush. The cicadas outside had stopped. No wind, no creaks, and then a clicking, faint, bone-like, coming from just outside the window, not rhythmic, not mechanical, but curious, like something tapping on its own teeth to understand what a sound was, as if it were practicing. Then came a second sound, subtle, whistling, but it wasn't any tune Caleb knew, just a warbling, off-kilter impression of a lullaby. Like someone had heard a mother singing from far off and tried to copy it without understanding the words. He didn't move, didn't even breathe. The window behind the curtain had frosted at the edges, not from cold but from presence. Something was standing out there just inches away. And it didn't knock, it didn't call his name. It practiced, clicking, humming, waiting. Then the whistling stopped, cut short mid-note. Silence returned. And with it, a low shuffling in the yard toward the field. Caleb waited until dawn before checking the outside. The grass beneath the window was pressed flat in the shape of feet too long to be human, and hands that had gripped the siding to hold still and lean in close. Whatever it was, it had listened to him sleep, and it had been learning. Caleb didn't sleep that night. Every blink of his eyes felt like an invitation for that thing to come closer. He kept the shotgun across his lap, the safety off, the barrel trained loosely on the door. Outside, the world was deathly quiet. No wind, no crickets, no scuttling from the woods. Even the night birds had gone still. And yet, just before dawn, he heard it again. A dragging. a dry, bony shuffling from behind the shed. He waited until daylight, not because he was afraid, he told himself, but because things were clearer in the sun. That was his lie, his armor. When the sun came up, he walked the perimeter of the property again, slow and steady, eyes on the shed. He noticed it then, the warped outline in the dirt behind the building. A path worn into the grass, not like a deer trail, narrower, intentional, like something had walked the same route over and over again, pacing, scraping its feet into the earth until it groaned. He hadn't noticed it before. There were claw marks gouged into the side of the shed now, deep ones, long enough to span his outstretched hand. But what stopped him cold were the prints below them. Barefoot, human, but too long, each toe sharp, spread too wide. He should have called someone then. A ranger, wildlife officer, even a goddamn cryptid hotline. But the same thought kept returning to him, even as the rational part of his brain screamed, "This is your land now, and your father didn't run." So Caleb opened the shed. It groaned like a dying animal. The scent hit him first, old blood and mildew, the sour rot of wet fur. Light filtered in through warped wooden slats, revealing shelves covered in cracked mason jars, old tools, boxes of nails, a faded tarp, and the trapdoor. He hadn't known the shed had one. The floorboards near the back sagged inward, uneven. Closer inspection revealed a metal ring, half sunk in the dirt-caked planks. A hidden crawl space, a root cellar. Whatever it was, it had been opened recently. The dust around the latch had been disturbed. Small, oily prints led away from it, and something, he didn't know what, was breathing beneath it. Not loudly, not heavily, but steady, rhythmic, like it was waiting. That night, Caleb didn't go inside. He dragged an old lawn chair onto the porch, shotgun in hand, and waited with a thermos of black coffee and a bottle of something stronger. His eyes never left the tree line, or the shed. When the clouds covered the moon and the wind started up again, he thought he saw it, just for a second. A tall silhouette between the trees, still as stone, a shape that didn't belong there, that didn't move right, that was watching him back, and then it vanished. Chapter 6. The eyes behind the lens, the silence of the farmhouse had become unbearable. Every tick of the old grandfather clock in the hall seemed louder than gunfire. Every creak of the floorboards upstairs made Caleb flinch. He didn't know if he was being paranoid, or if the house was beginning to breathe with something else's rhythm. That morning, he drove into town for the first time in weeks. The grocery run was just an excuse. What he really needed was tech, trail cams, motion sensors, anything that could give him eyes where his own couldn't go. He returned with 3 hunting cameras, infrared capable, weatherproof, battery powered. He set them up methodically, one high in the tree facing the shed, one angled down the path that had been worn into the grass behind it, and one, hesitantly, inside the shed itself, hidden in the rafters, overlooking the warped floor and the trapdoor beneath. The last camera was a gamble. If there really was something down there, he needed to know. He didn't sleep that night, just waited. Morning came like a migraine, colorless, sickly, too fast. He checked the footage with shaking hands, sipping burnt coffee at the kitchen table, laptop open. Camera 1, tree line. 2:03 a.m., static. 2:06, wind. Branches move, nothing unusual. 2:12, a tall, dark shape at the very edge of the frame. Still, just inside the trees. It stays for 8 minutes. No movement, but its head, if it has a head, tilts. It's looking at the camera. Then it backs away, not walks. Backs. Like a person in rewind. Camera 2, behind the shed. 2:15 a.m., silence. Then a sudden blur. Something scuttles low and fast across the ground, then stops directly beneath the lens. The camera tilts, slightly, as if something tapped it. Or touched it, then black. The lens is smeared. Fingerprint, maybe blood. Camera 3, inside the shed. This one takes him the longest to open. 2:30 a.m., the room is still. Dust particles shift like snow in the infrared. 2:34, the trapdoor opens. But not like someone lifting it, more like it unfolds. From the inside, slowly, deliberately, a hand rises from the dark, but not a human hand. Long, elongated fingers, bare but not skin. Something pale, porous, like stretched bark. A network of veins or roots beneath the surface twitch and shimmer. It reaches up toward the camera, hesitates, then looks directly into the lens. No eyes, no face. Just that suggestion of awareness, that knowing. And then the feed cuts out. The files are still there, still time-stamped, but the footage is corrupted, black and buzzing, like the static has a pattern. Caleb slams the laptop shut. Later, when he goes to retrieve the cameras, he finds 2 are gone. Only the one in the tree remains. The others, only their mounts are left, scraped clean, wrenched apart. And something has been written, in mud or something darker, on the shed door. No more WATCHING. Chapter 7. His father's journal, while tearing through old drawers and cabinets in the barn, hoping to find a spare trail cam. Caleb stumbles on a mildewed shoebox tucked behind a pile of rusted tools. Inside is his father's handwriting, a beat-up composition notebook. At first, it's what you'd expect. Weather notes, planting schedules, some figures. But then, entries start to shift. March 22nd, heard it breathing again last night. Don't look, don't answer, just stay small. April 3rd, the thing behind the shed brought back the coyote, still alive. Could hear it screaming into the morning. June 9th. If I leave the bones in the bucket by the willow, it doesn't scratch at the windows. Each page grows less legible, more frantic. The entries start repeating the same words, as if written during fits. It's not a deer. It's not a deer. It's not a deer. Caleb feels cold inside. He flips to the back cover. There's a sketch, crude, drawn in what looks like red ink or dried blood. A towering thing with human legs bent the wrong way. A long, narrow skull. No eyes. Just a yawning cavity where a face should be. That night, Caleb wakes to find the notebook no longer where he left it. It's on the windowsill, open to the page with the sketch. And next to it, outside, something is standing in the yard, perfectly still. Watching, not moving, but somehow getting closer. You made it back for now. But the things in the dark never truly leave, do they? They watch, they wait, and perhaps they remember you now, too. If you want to hear more, if you dare to listen again, step back into the shadows. Like the video. Subscribe, but know this, some doors once opened do not close so easily.